Hola, buenos días a quienes nos acompañan aquí hoy en el Laboratorio de Información Metropolitana y por allá quienes están siguiendo la transmisión en CyADtv. Pues bueno, bienvenidos a Tácticas de Paz, que es un evento que reúne expertos, académicos y líderes comunitarios para promover el diálogo constructivo y la paz en la sociedad, así como la resolución de conflictos por medio del diseño. Entonces, bueno, este evento es posible gracias al apoyo del área de diseño y educación del Departamento de Evaluación del Diseño en el Tiempo, de la Coordinación de Vinculación de la División de CyAD y de la UAM Azcapotzalco. Esto fue llevado a cabo en conjunto con el Círculo de Jóvenes Diseñadores Young Designers Circle de World Design Organization. Queremos agradecer también al Servicio Social que nos está apoyando por allá y a CyADtv, quienes nos está apoyando con la transmisión. Con ustedes, el maestro Sergio Dávila, que va a presentar a nuestra primera ponente.
¿Qué tal? Buenos días a todos. Estamos en este taller de tácticas de paz que han organizado sus compañeras Valeria Valdés y Selina, que viene de El Salvador. Y bueno, estamos muy emocionados de empezar con las conferencias del día de hoy. Les voy a comentar un poco de nuestra primera conferencista, que ya la tenemos en línea. Ella viene de la institución Copper Hewitt, que es parte del Smithsonian en Washington, D.C. y pertenece a la Soy Design. Déjenme les comento un poco de ella. Ella es Cynthia Smith. Ella está formada como diseñadora industrial y ha liderado proyectos multidisciplinares de planificación y diseño para instituciones culturales. Después de tener un título de posgrado en la Escuela de Gobierno de Kennedy de la Universidad de Harvard, Smith se unió a Copper Hewitt, donde integra su experiencia laboral con la defensa de los derechos humanos y los problemas de justicia social como curadora de diseño socialmente responsable. Fue coautora del libro Politics of Genocide, una retórica de la infracción de Estados Unidos con DACO, y para el Kennedy School Review. Fue co-curadora de la Trienal de Diseño del 2010 de White Design Lab. Ha curado exhibiciones como Design for the Other 90% en 2017 y Design with the Others 90% Cities en 2011. También en el libro By the People, Designing a Better America en 2016. Ha sido nombrada dentro de los 20 pioneros para la revista Icon Design y la próxima generación de curadores jóvenes de la revista Metrópolis. Es miembro de la red de expertos del Foro Económico Mundial y forma parte de los jurados internacionales y da conferencias sobre diseño socialmente responsable. Es autora del libro Design Peace, Building a Better Future Now, que la recomendamos mucho. La conferencia será en inglés, estaremos apoyándolos en cualquier traducción. Si quieren hacer preguntas, si quieren cuestionarles, saber un poco más del libro, de su trabajo, nosotros les estaremos apoyando. Y bueno, le damos la bienvenida. Welcome, Cynthia. We just introduced your profile. We're introducing your book. And we'll give you the space for starting your conference now.
Thank you very much. Delighted to be here today. Let me start with I'll share my screen. So thank you for the kind introductions. Can you see this? Okay, Sergio? Great.
We can see your screen. Can you say quickly to the students something? A veces tenemos intermitencia en la pantalla, entonces podemos seguir aquí en cualquiera de las dos. Sorry, Cynthia. Go ahead.
Thank you for the kind introduction. And greetings from New York. Smith, I'm a curator at Cooper Hewitt Smithsonian Design Museum, and we're one of two museums that are not located on the Washington Mall in New York's in Washington, D.C. We're actually located on Museum Mile in Manhattan. So if you're ever in New York, please come visit us. So I was really pleased to hear from Sergio and others that others around the globe are also thinking about design and peace. And so I was excited to be a part of this conversation. Today, I want to give you an overview of Designing Peace, which is an exhibition and publication I organized for the Museum for Cooper Hewitt, Smithsonian Design Museum. Just a little bit of background. Designing Peace is the 5th in a humanitarian design exhibition and book series that I organized. I think it was mentioned in my introduction. These are some images from those previous exhibitions. Either they were out on in our garden outside the museum along Fifth Avenue, the first show. Another one was organized for the United Nations headquarters here in New York City. Another one was inside the actual museum. And another was out in Seattle, Washington at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. But the idea for this exhibition emerged when I was researching collaborative community design for the US focused by the People Designing a Better America exhibition. So in spite of it being a very divisive time here in the US, this was 2014-16, 15, I found local communities were working together across divides to improve their neighborhoods. So during this period, I began to ask myself, what if this type of collaboration took place at a larger scale? What might be possible if society were to design for peace? And so this was the question that propelled my research for this next exhibition and publication, Designing Peace. So it's international. It features 40 design works from over 20 countries. The work spans multiple design disciplines and creative fields, from landscape architecture to public art campaigns. It explores a range of scales and approaches. The exhibition, which just closed here in New York on August 6th, was designed by a Boston-based architecture firm, Haller and Yoon, who also worked with a New York-based graphic design team, Common Name. And these are images from that installation. And the space allows for groups to come together in places for quiet reflection to take in the challenging material. It will travel, and it's going to San Francisco at the Museum of Craft and Design this October. So if you find yourself in San Francisco, please stop by to see the actual physical exhibition. Designing Peace includes the physical display along with the book, which is entitled Designing Peace, Building a Better Future Now, and also an online digital exhibition. What you're seeing here is the cover of the book. It was designed by a New Zealand-based design studio practice. The book opens to this page, the inside cover. The image describes the urgent message for all of us to combine our creative efforts and act now in the face of mounting social, environmental, and economic inequities, to envision the future we want to live in, to take action to create it today. And so this question, what might be possible if society were to design for peace, has been the basis for my research over the last 5 years, and also the basis for the publication, where I invited 16 designers, peace builders, artists, academics, and activists from around the globe to author essays exploring this question. From what you see here, this is a spread from Beautiful Troubles Toolbox, which is a set of creative activism tactics and techniques to make positive change, to an essay from South Africa that calls for an end to colonialism via an international reparation model that would transform nation states into citizen states. These new societies are not characterized by a drive, are characterized by a drive for life, not power, peace, not war, inclusivity and diversity, not difference, and survival for all, not just the fittest. I also interviewed an indigenous peace activist from Manipur in northern India who advocates for elevating the voices of women living in forgotten conflict zones and the voices of millions of indigenous people living in ecological hotspots. She emphasized the importance of bringing them into the fore in all of our peace efforts. I think this is an important distinction. I think we found that often including people who are not often included into the conversation leads for a more durable peace. Designing Peace's aim is to challenge the traditional discourse on peace, to demonstrate that peace is not simply the absence of war, what peace researchers call negative peace, but rather it's a dynamic and complex process that can be built and nurtured in a multitude of ways in different contexts at various scales to create more resilient, just, and inclusive societies, using building blocks to create more sustainable, resilient societies. This is the idea of positive peace. So one example of this comes from northern Syria, which is pictured here, an alliance of Kurdish revolutionaries and other stateless people declared the autonomy of Rojava. They're reimagining a new type of stateless democracy, which is based on self-governance, gender equality, communal economics, where everything is shared equally, not on religious divisions, but secularism and cultural diversity. They worked with Rotterdam-based Jonas Stahl Studio to design and build a people's parliament that brings these ideals forward. And that embodies the idea that democracy is always in the making. So this space, the Agora, and I think this is an important point, is where conflict is transformed through discourse. And the idea of peace manifests not as an end game, but as a complex process. You'll see that over and over again, this idea of process, which I think is really important for designers, because we engage in a pretty deliberative process. So both the exhibition and the publication are organized around 5 provocative questions. Each asks a fundamental question about what it means to design for peace, and that's before, during, and post-conflict. One of the provocations, how can design engage in creative confrontation, illuminates the important concept that not all conflict is damaging. When it engages with unjust systems, conflict can be transformative. In fact, creative responses to injustices are at the center of this work, and where design can play an important role. So, for example, the Black Lives Matter street murals that spread across the United States and beyond after the killing of George Floyd challenged and reframed the conversation about the need for safe public spaces for people of color to gather, create, and thrive. We included this large visualization of a public archive which locates all of the Black Lives Matter murals that were created in small towns and large cities across the US. The visualization was designed to illustrate not only the spread of the powerful declaration, but also to demonstrate the intersecting demographics and events that precipitated the actions. Museum visitors can access additional key information about each mural using their smartphones or online at the digital exhibition. This includes dates, locations of each installation, links to photos and media stories, the mural's message. Sometimes they extend to beyond just stating Black Lives Matter, and also the artists and the organizations that were involved. Visual symbols can activate global movements by communicating across divides. For example, the extinction symbol was created to raise awareness of the need for transformative change in the face of an accelerating species extinction caused by humans. It is designed to be easily drawn, reproduced, and understood. The circle signifies the planet, and the hourglass sends the urgent message that time is running out. Used around the world, the simple design can be easily recreated with human bodies or even a flotilla of boats. The symbol is often employed during direct actions, demanding governments do more to combat global warming and protect biodiversity. And it's also become the visual identity for the growing Extinction Rebellion movement and the world's ecological symbol of peaceful resistance. Another provocation asks, how can design address the root causes of conflict? Design can play a significant role addressing the underlying sources of division before conflict arises by building resilience or expanding access, challenging repressive systems to improve lives globally. For example, with the rise of social media, Peace Tech Lab out of Washington, D.C. pioneered a process for identifying and contextualizing hate speech using machine learning, workshops, and interviews with local communities. The resulting hate speech lexicons offer alternative words and phrases that can be used to stop the spread of inflammatory language. A third provocation asks, how can design support safe, healthy, respectful environments? And there's a call for a more life-affirming approach to peace and security that values safety, well-being, and dignity for all, and less on military actions. And I think this is a key distinction. For example, this design, the teeter-totter wall, explores the idea of creating more dignified and respectful places. Two communities long separated by the US-Mexico border wall came together to play on three oversized teeter-totters that span the US-Mexico border. The wall itself acted as a fulcrum for the installation. It echoed US-Mexico relations, so movements on and actions on one side directly impacted the other side. And this is mirrored in cross-border politics, economics, and human relations. It was designed by San Fratel, a studio based here in the US, and they worked with a collective based in Mexico. The installation temporarily temporarily transform the small wall section into a space of hope and elation, a place where women and children live with dignity in spite of the xenophobia and violence perpetuated by the wall and its construction. You'll note that the three teeter-totters were painted this high contrast pink, which honored women that were murdered during femicide in Juarez. The pieces were transported to the site just west of Juarez, Mexico. The design build team inserted the seesaws into the border wall's vertical slats, and others attached the banana-style bike seats and handlebars from the US side. Building empathy is a goal of the digital game Papers, Please. Rather than playing as an elite international spy, gamers can take on the persona of a low-level border agent for a fictional communist country. It's an example of a growing movement among game designers to use games and immersive media for social good. There was a 2016 working paper by the United Nations and the Gandhi Institute for Education for Peace and Sustainable Development that described how digital gaming can build empathy and intergroup awareness. These are both critical components in conflict resolution and peace education. Realizing justice can mean engaging all of society in a dialogue about the past and raising voices historically excluded. This section asks, how can design embrace truth and dignity in a search for peace and justice? My Ancestor's Garden by Oakland-based landscape architect Walter Hood memorializes the port of entry for nearly half of all enslaved Africans brought to North America, where thousands of people were warehoused, sold, and many died. Hood's landscape design for the newly opened International African American Museum in Charleston, South Carolina, here in the US, exposes what had been erased. The former Gadsden's Wharf, this is where the warehouse was situated, had never been marked. It will now reveal the truths that had long been obscured. Hood's design was informed by this diagram of a packed Brook slave ship. This diagram was used by abolitionists in the late 18th century in their fight against slavery. The drawing depicted the inhumane conditions of the vessel loaded with 454 enslaved people. Echoing the slave ship diagram, Hood marked the watery terrain with full-size outlines of bodies set into pavers visitors can walk along. The set of figures are revealed as water recedes and are hidden when the water rises. Born out of a need to write differently about the African world, the quarterly broadsheet, The Chronic, written by and for Africans, prints provocations instead of headlines. It reports more than the news. It articulates the complexities, the innovations, the thoughts, the dreams that are part of everyday life across the African continent. Interviews, essays, and exposés are interwoven with critical cartographies, photographs, comics, illustrations, histories, geographies. Each edition is based on a different theme. The one we included in the exhibition harnessed the typically imperialistic tool of cartography and published critical maps made by Africans that visualize their own perception of life on the continent, from trade and power structures to the movement of people and ideas. This particular map, Street Countries, explores Africa's visible and symbolic boundaries, which have constantly expanded and contracted over the last 2 centuries. The fifth provocation explores designing peace post-conflict, establishing peace that is transformative, long-term, and beneficial to all segments of society requires a comprehensive approach to sustainable development, peace building, and human rights. One design studio explored alternative post-conflict futures for the entire Korean Peninsula. North and South Korea are reunified through landscape design. Proposals erase borders, they address the live landmines, soil contamination, and population displacement throughout the DMZ and beyond, while providing social, economic, and cultural opportunities for all Korean citizens. Collaborative design can play a key role post-conflict by bringing together different disciplines, sectors, and stakeholders, especially women, youth, and those on the margins, to build a more durable peace. I would say that refugees are probably the most vulnerable people in our societies right now. They're fleeing conflicts and persecution. Record numbers of refugees arrived on the shores of Greece's island of Lesbos. At the peak, there were 5,000 a day. In solidarity, the local residents transformed a former summer camp into a community-run refugee camp. With donated sewing machines, a local designer set up a safe passage bag workshop employing refugees as well as local residents. The collaborative workshop was set up as a place where they could work and create something together and learn a new skill. So a mountain of life jackets had piled up. You know, you can imagine 5,000 arriving a day. They were no longer needed after the treacherous sea journey. They were recycled into bags of all sizes. Each bag and case is unique and are made from the often faded life jacket fabric, reminding the user of the dangerous journey made by the wearer and the experience of the refugee who sewed it. They send an important message to the world, the right to safe passage. These and other works explored in the exhibition expand the discourse on what might be possible if society were to design for peace. Thank you.
Thank you. Sí.
No dejar de iPad.
Sí, está bien. Ya no se está escuchando.
No hay un mensaje en la pantalla del iPad. ¿Alguno de ustedes tiene preguntas para Cintia que les quieran realizar o es en español o en inglés? ¿No? ¿Seguros? Bueno, ahorita a ver si se animan. ¿No? Well, Cynthia, can you hear us? Creo que sí, está apagada la audio de Cynthia.
Yes, I'm unmuted now. Yes, I can hear you. Sorry.
Okay. Well, I have a question for you. Thank you for this presentation. It's very impressive. All the works from creative people that you have been putting in this great book. And my question is, what is the richness that you've been finding after learning different definitions of peace from different contexts? Because something that we have been discussing is that peace have a different meaning depending on the context that the people are, for example, in a proximity to the war, or even the peace with yourself, for example. So my question here is, what is the richness that you have been finding during this research?
Great question. Yeah, when I started my research, in fact, I included in the essay in the book, I included a series of definitions for peace, and always when I was meeting with people who were involved in whether it was architects or activists or peace researchers, I would always ask what was their definition of peace. And it was always different. I think the one that was most important, especially to bring this kind of information to a broader audience beyond the peace researchers or scholars, in thinking about the general population and even designers, is this idea of negative peace versus positive peace. Negative peace simply being the absence of war, and then positive peace, which is all the things that make up a society that is more resilient, that can withstand natural disasters or human-made disasters, what we're experiencing right now with global warming and climate change, or economic downturns. And that's where I think design can play a really important role, because these are all things that we, even before conflict arises, that we can begin to take a look at all the ways that we can make our societies more inclusive and resilient.
Thank you. Yes.
I would like to make a question also, Cynthia. This university, we have the Bachelor's of Industrial Design, and we're constantly educating students to do product, service, and we sometimes do something like a social innovation, as well. And these tactics that you are showing us, this way to lead peace and to create peace in social groups, it's not often what we see as the product of an industrial designer, like the common means and the common practice of an industrial designer. So my question will be, how can we understand this difference between making a product and making a path for creating peace, or supporting social activism, or creating public intervention, probably with the methodology of design or with the theory of design? But can you enlighten us a little bit about it?
So my background, I'm actually an industrial designer. I have a bachelor's of science in industrial design. So I'm delighted that you have all these young product designers, industrial service designers there. So for me, it was an evolution over time. I continue to try to expand. I have often called myself a design activist, and over time a design advocate, because I think design can, and the way we are trained to collaborate, to work together across sectors, whether it's a public sector, the private sector, the civic sector. As designers, we have, and we're trained to do this. We're trained to think beyond what exists. And I think that, and so for myself, the reason I speak about myself is that was an evolution for me too. Understanding that we have an important voice in all kinds of ways to address issues across whether they're economic, social, or environmental. And I think it's critical that we, the interesting thing with peace and design is there is this kind of common process that they share. Both use communication, both use iteration, and both use understanding context. And I think that's really critical, that we really emphasize those when we engage, whether it's peace building in all these different forms, either before, during, or post-conflict, or in any way that we're addressing social issues using communication and understanding context. And often that means working directly with people to understand what their needs are, not thinking that we have the answer, but understanding that it comes out of a place and a people and a need. And we should, if anything, I think the skill that we should encourage in our young designers, our young product and service designers, are the skill of listening.
Nice. Well, thanks a lot. Could you give us, or to our students, our community that is listening, could you give a last golden nugget that they can take home from this talk, and maybe from your experience and having that social turn from industrial design to activist and creator of designing peace?
Well, I always thank you. Yes, I think, this is always what's happened for me. The exhibitions that I put together are a reflection of what's happening in the world. So my process is I speak to a lot of people who are involved in all aspects of this work, whether they're architects or designers or community members or researchers. And what I do is I let the work, I gather it, and then I start to look at it and let it speak to me. And then certain themes begin to emerge. The 5 different provocations kind of sorted themselves out as I began to look at the work. But one underlying theme that I think is really prevalent right now, especially in young designers, is this idea of prefigurative intervention. I'm going to say it again, prefigurative intervention. So you can imagine what that means. It's before and intervening. And what that means is designers, activists, collaborating together are modeling the future they want now before it's taken shape. So this is a really powerful idea if you think about it. So I would suggest like Black Lives Matter street murals is a way of modeling the future we want today before it's even happened in the face of social justice inequities. And so you can go through the entire exhibition and see where that's true. So that's what I would. It's a reflection of what's happening now, and that gives me such hope for this next generation of designers.
Could it be prototyping intervention, prototyping social justice, prototyping the peace? I mean, trying it before it happens.
And modeling it for other people to see what it might be.
Beautiful. Thanks a lot. Okay. Cynthia, well, it has been such a pleasure to have you with us. We recorded the session and we will have it available for our students. And hopefully we can invite you again soon for that matter. And I'll keep in touch about our what's called the diploma or the receipt that to honor your intervention over here today. And yeah, let's keep in touch about future projects and things that we can collaborate together.
That would be terrific. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Next, we have Anna. Anna, thank you for being here with us. Let me introduce you to our
Recording in
students.
progress.
Let me introduce you quickly to our students, and
Hello, thank you.
I'll give you the space. Anna, are you currently in Italy? Where are you?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am in Italy.
Okay, so let me introduce you quickly to our students.
Can you hear me well?
Yeah, we can listen to you perfectly.
Beautiful.
Bueno, pues gracias por estar en la primera sesión. Con Cintia vamos a continuar con Ana Meroni. En un momento les comento su perfil. Quería comentarles que tenemos también acceso por la parte de atrás. Por si quieren salir al baño o cualquier cosa que necesiten, también se puede accesar por allá atrás para no distraerlo, a lo mejor no pasar al frente de la televisión. No hay problemas ahí con el proyector, así que una disculpa por esa parte. Pero bueno, quedan las sesiones también grabadas para cualquier consulta posterior. Y en serio, si podemos apoyarlos a cualquier pregunta, cualquier duda que surja o traducir alguna cosa, ponnos hacia la mano y ya vamos, los apoyamos de cerca. Les cuento de Ana Meroni. Ana Meroni está en Italia en este momento. Ella es investigadora del Politécnico de Milán, pero su enfoque es investigación en el servicio y en el diseño estratégico. Este enfoque busca la sostenibilidad encaminada a fomentar la innovación social, la participación y el desarrollo local. Ella es cofundadora en el Politécnico de Milán del laboratorio DESI y la red internacional DESI, Diseño para la Innovación Social y Sostenibilidad, es lo que significa DESI. Ha desarrollado una experiencia específica en el codiseño de estrategias, métodos y herramientas. Ha creado el concepto de diseño centrado en la comunidad y trabaja transversalmente en nuevos emprendimientos, creación de lugares, servicios públicos, bienes comunes urbanos, así como en la investigación e innovación responsables. Desde el 2022 es vicedecana de la Escuela de Diseño del Politécnico de Milán. Es investigadora principal de proyectos de investigación nacionales e internacionales, presidenta de congresos, autora de varias publicaciones y miembro de diferentes comités científicos y profesora invitada en universidades internacionales. So, Anna, thanks a lot for being with us today. We have a group of students over here. We have some students connected online. And we will keep also this presentation for future references in the university.
Sure, thank you.
So to make use of the best use of your time, we'll give you the space now for your presentation, and after that we'll have a few minutes for Q&A.
Okay. So first of all, thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me and for having me for this opportunity, which I think is very relevant. So I really thank you for this, because what I'm going to present today is a project that we started 1.5 years ago. That was, as you will see in a minute, was a kind of emotional reaction to something that happened and unfortunately is still happening here in Europe. And so I'm really happy, if I can use this term, to see that the debate on peace, the debate on how we can, as designers, contribute to a dialogue of peace is also open in your university. So let me share this with you. Let me see if everything goes well. Okay. And I'm coming. Okay. Tell me if you can see well my presentation. I hope so. So the project I'm about to tell you a few words is called Design Against War. as I briefly anticipated, it is kind of in our intention. It was born as a kind of platform for thought and also for action, as a reaction, in fact, to what we have very close in Europe, which is the invasion of Ukraine by the Russian. For us, I can understand that for you maybe all this is a little bit afar, but it was not, and it is not at all for us. And when it happened in February 24, 2022, it was a kind of collective shock. And it was something that we all believed was unbelievable. But unfortunately, it happened. And so it was a pretty emotional reaction that we had in our school of design in Politecnico. And so we said that we asked ourselves, okay, what can design do against war? Or are there ideas, project initiatives that could, even actions that could be implemented, could be thought, could be done? As I said, it was not a rational reaction. It was more the idea of giving a voice as educators, giving a voice to the students and creating a platform for the students to express their vision, their concern. And so this was the initial idea. So to stimulate a reflection and take a cultural position, a cultural stance, pretty aware that we would not have definitely changed the destiny of this unfortunate conflict, but with the idea that speaking about it would have been anyway a contribution to raise not only awareness, but also reflection, and also, to stimulate our community to think about it. And so we started really after a few days of the invasion. We asked the permission to our university to create a system of teams. And so to collect ideas, first of all. And so we asked the permission to open an Instagram page that we thought was the most immediate way to communicate. And we created a very open and light briefing for all those that wanted to contribute. And it was not restricted to the students of Politecnico, but it was intentionally open to all students of all universities. And so it was. And so we said, okay, what if we create a very light briefing, nothing too strong in a way? And so we created we gave a number of keywords, but was really very, very, very small, the framework that we gave to the students. And so we said, okay, we launched this initiative with our students. And so we said, okay, this is the Instagram page. Of course, in the beginning was empty. And in few months, just in the very first 5 months, we had a number of ideas that started to come in. And these ideas were of many different kinds. As I mentioned, the briefing was very light. So all kinds of students, not only design students, started to think about this issue from their own experience and also perspective, also professional and design field. And so it was pretty fast, let's say, the coming of ideas. Of course, we did a small editing. I cannot say that we did not have also kind of aggressive proposals that we asked to change, or we decided not to publish, because there was a kind of responsibility that we felt about the things that were of course coming. And so ideas were, of course, part of the game, but not only ideas. So in a while, we moved from a very open briefing to some more structured actions. And so, for instance, we started to organize a number of workshops with operators that were, in fact, involved in this emergency. And so we contacted more of them, several of them, and not only. So we also decided to start to organize, with the collaboration of the students, a number of initiatives. For instance, we issue a couple of calls for essential goods for the people there. And so we started to collect very different things, and so we repeat it more than once, and I think we're going to do the same now in the very next month. But not only. And so we started also to work with other things, such as interviews. And so we started to look for voices, different voices of operators, of journalists, of designers that were in a way involved, or directly or indirectly, or in Ukraine or in Italy. And so we started to have a dialogue with them, and to ask them to give us a short experience, a short bit of their experience with this situation. And so also this Instagram page started to get populated, but most of all, we started to think beyond what we were already doing. So we started to understand the issues and the problems. We started to see what other initiatives might have been organized. And so we started also to work with these organizations. We organized a first workshop with Refugees Welcome. Refugees Welcome is an organization, is a global organization that, as you can understand from the name, help supporting refugees from whatever situation. And in Italy, for them, this was an exceptional moment, because in a few weeks, in a few months, we had really 100 of refugees every day entering in Italy. And not only, all Europe was in a way in this same situation. So there was an emergency of also regarding these particular people, these particular individuals that were completely displaced, were of course shocked, and were to be set somewhere somehow. And so Refugees Welcome was trying at that time, was particularly, Refugees Welcome worked with home hospitality. So they were really trying to find families in Italy, in Milan in particular, where we are, to host this number of refugees. And so we started to work with them on different ideas, such as you can see here, the cohabitation pills, or different offline, online, digital, analogical tools to help the interaction of these newcomers with the Italian population. And one of the idea that came out from the workshop we organized in Polytechnico was actually organized, and it was a potluck, a so-called potluck lunch. And so a gathering moment in Milan that put together all these different refugees with Italian families in a collective lunch with different foods from Italy and from Ukraine. And so this was the beginning. Then we did more with emergency. we did more with other, let's say, organizations. You can imagine the kind of issues that sometimes related to the situation in Italy, like the one of hosting the refugees, and sometimes related to the situation in Ukraine or on the borders of the country to provide help and support to the people there. We started a big collaboration with Politecnico di Torino, and they organized an entire studio around this topic, a studio of communication. And so the title was Give Peace a Chance, and it was really about designing things for the peace. And then we started to collaborate at different levels. One of the initiatives that we are still working on is this Design for Ukrainian Heritage, which is co-organized with MEAN. MEAN is the Movimento Europeo di Azione Non Violenta, European Movement of Non-Violent Action. And this initiative gathered together 20 different museums in Ukraine that were, of course, struggling to try to safeguard their art pieces. And we gathered them together with the idea of designing, first of all, mapping out the most notable art pieces in their museum in order at least to make sure to have a record of these materials, and then try to make accessible these art pieces even during the war. You can imagine that the museums are closed and sometimes also heavily damaged by the war. So the beginning of the story was this kind of stock taking, if you like, of the different art pieces in the museum. But then we decided to try to design a design for Ukrainian heritage in the metaverse. And so we did, and this museum in the metaverse it has been just finished, or at least it is to a point of completeness that we are pretty satisfied with. It has been presented in July to the directors of these 20 Ukrainian museums, and it will be disseminated in September. So what I have now for you is a little bit of anticipation of what will be actually presented more extensively in the very next weeks. So you see there is a violin, and this violin is the violin of one musician that also put together, if you remember this, put together 95 violinists from across the planet to play for Ukraine. So basically, you are now entering in this metaverse museum. The dots that you can see, blue dots, are entry doors to some materials, such as this kind of description of the art pieces, but also the websites or other relevant material of the different museums. All this has been done by students, of course, guided by us, by a colleague in particular, who is Anna Barbara, but basically all the work has been done by the students. And so this is something that characterized the entire project, still having this very relevant voice and role of the students. In the center of the museum, now we will enter the center. You will also see that there is a room dedicated to the future. And so we are working with different organizations also to consider, to think about the future. Of course, the future of this heritage is connected to the destiny of this war and to the end of the conflict. So it's very hard now to figure out what might be the future and in which conditions these museums will actually be in a few months. So it's almost done, but soon we will provide communication about this, but also the access to the metaverse for those who would like to take a visit to the museum on their own. So this is just a kind of preview. And as you can see, it's a very rich set of things. This is the futures, and so the projects are ongoing. And so that's it. But this is not the only one. This year in February, we organized another workshop with another design school in Italy. With this particular workshop, we of course we involved students from also those schools. So we had a mix of students from Polytechnic, from CyAD. And in particular, we have been working around food. And so the idea was really try to understand how food, which is a convivial tool by definition, can really help doing things against war. And another one, I don't have yet the things to show you, the results to show you, because we are elaborating them, was a workshop done with the Italian Red Cross on temporary homes for Ukraine, so for people that were displaced from their houses. And then we understood that the scope of this project was growing, and we wanted to, and we want still today, we want to extend it from the case in Ukraine to a wider context of conflict. And as you may know, there is a big issue with liberty and with freedom in Iran now. And since we have a lot of students from Iran, it's a pretty well organized community of students from there, we felt like, okay, why don't we try to understand what is happening there, and again, try to see what we can do as designers. And so we had a student, a girl, Elena, that decided to set up a performance. And with the help of some supporters and also a little bit of sponsors, we created this beautiful, huge carpet, which resembled the design of a Persian, old Persian carpet, but which instead collects all the names of all the women that were killed by the regime in the last year. And so the performance was held in June in our campus, and visitors were invited to take a small ribbon, to put a sentence, to write whatever they feel like they wanted to write, and to tie this ribbon to the carpet. And so the performance lasted one day, but then the carpet remained in exhibition for a week. But after this exhibition, the designers, and so the lady Elena that you have seen, packed it into a backpack and is taking this carpet around Europe to raise the awareness and sensitivity on what is happening there. So, as you can see, things are many. And so at a certain point, and it was already October the last year, we started to think about, okay, what kind of projects are we collecting? What are the things that we are understanding from these projects? So it was a very, if you like, it was a reflection that really moved from understanding what is coming from the bottom. So there was not a theoretical framework to frame what we have found in the project. But on the other way around, we started to look at the projects, look at the proposal, and think about something. So about basically why these projects were intended to prevent, alleviate, or rebuild the situation after or during a war. So most of all, we understood that, of course, the projects were allocated in different areas. So from food to awareness, from peace to the digital to whatever. But most of all, they were intentionally or unintentionally organized in three main categories related to the aim of the project. So prevent conflict, alleviate the consequences of a conflict, or rebuild people, places, and society. And so we started to reflect with this eyes, and we organized in October 2022 in Milan, in a location that is renowned in the city for being the house of the volunteering associations. So it's a house, it's a public space that gathers a number of organizations dealing with volunteering in different fields. So basically third sector organizations. And so we organized there an exhibition with the results so far, so till October 22. And we put this initiative within a broader citywide initiatives. And so, again, it was the Festival dello Sviluppo Sostenibile, which is the Sustainable Development Festival. And now you see some of the images of this exhibition. That was the beginning, the opening. And we decided to stay in this beautiful garden because it was the most communal space of the entire building. The building is right in the center of Milan, and the exhibition that you see was designed by the students. So we started to, of course, we took stock of the material we had collected, but the way in which this material was organized and also the design of the exhibition itself was coordinated by us, of course, but mainly done by the students. And together with the exhibitions, we started to think, really, to put together a number of thoughts on what we were observing. And again, we decided to organize something that in the beginning was kind of a very intimate discussion. So we organized a kind of workshop in which few people were invited, and they were representatives of different organizations, with the intention of start considering what we were doing, also having voices of experts that were not us, and start to consider to create a kind of manifesto. And so the idea was really, what if we continue, of course, doing what we are doing, but at the same time, we start to work on a manifesto. And so we also start to consider how can some of this idea be translated into real projects. How can education raise not only awareness but also competence and dialogue on peace? How can a project born from emotion, from instinct, like this one, become a more structured and permanent one? And so how to create a critical mass around the planet with similar initiatives. And so that's why I'm very happy to get in touch with you guys, because I hope this can be the beginning of some other things. Then, if you like, you can find kind of a short documentary of what we discuss in that occasion. But most of all, we took the discussion, this debate further in Cumulus Detroit in November 22, also involving Arturo Escobar, Jonathan Ventura, and also Cinzia was there. Unfortunately, I could not be there in presence because of a family issue, but I enjoyed very much their participation on remote. And so, what are we learning from this? Towards a manifesto, as I anticipated. A manifesto is something that can take different shapes. We are, in fact, observing and analyzing different kind of manifestos. But the idea is that there can be general principles and mechanisms that we can identify, and that can be applied to designing whatever services, products, communication, whatever. And this mechanism has probably have something to do with prevention, alleviation, and rebuilding, as I mentioned it before. And so, as I said, we started to look at different manifesto, which in some cases have also similar purposes. And it's very interesting research, if you like, guys, to do that, to try to understand what kind of voices have been translated into something like a manifesto for peace or against war. And we started with a new journey for the creation of a manifesto in the last July in Rio de Janeiro, in the occasion of the conference served as 2023. And so we started to create this. This is the basis we started from, in which with a little bit of pre-elaboration done by us, we are now really, trying to understand on three different levels, so the general principles, the design processes, and design outputs, which can be this mechanism that can prevent, alleviate, or rebuild peace. And so to start our reflection, we took a number of projects as examples from each of the three categories. And here you see some cards to help the dialogue, and also, most of all, to remind you every day that you can have a voice in whatever situation that can move in a direction or another. Or the education of children. And so all this is prevent, in which prevent may have really the words of design, such as co-production. So design items to be co-produced is a way also to consider different viewpoints, as you know very well, or design items for sharing, or show the beauty through the beauty. So try to really look for what is the beauty of humanity, the beauty of the environment. Or other projects, such as this one, which is a very simple but poetic postcard to give a message of peace to people which are in a situation of war, or more practical, functional, such as the survival list that you can have in an application. or, as you can see, this potluck lunch to collect and to gather the community of Ukrainian people, in this case, to let them feel less alone. Or, more functional or more poetic situation. And so this is all about alleviate. And alleviating means also fighting, for instance, fake news, or inform the parties, or facilitate understanding of the different culture, and so on and so forth. And finally, what does it mean to rebuild? Because we hope to have soon this necessity to understand how to rebuild. And it's of course, very hard, because it's not just a material rebuild, but it's a cultural and a social rebuild. And so this idea of leaving the traces of what has been destroyed in a building, or working with forum theater to help understand each other and regain mutual respect, or the museums that you have seen, and what we are doing with the metaverse now. And so that's it. I think I'm already over time. So we are on the way. I can't come to you with something already clear, but I'm happy, really happy to have your. If someone would like to get in touch with us and to participate in this process of creating this manifesto, the doors are open. Contact me, and I really will be happy to keep you posted about the future initiatives. I have to say that, as you can imagine, this is a side initiative for us, so we all struggle to survive every day, and to put also this into the equation of our everyday life. But so sometimes the project is very, animated, sometimes is a little bit more silent, but it's a platform. So it's open to all our colleagues that want to propose something. It's open to all the initiatives, and it's open to all colleagues, not only colleagues of Politecnico, that would like to do something. So the idea is that the critical mass is not something, is important. It's not something that we can. It's part of our cultural work. So to create a critical mass of people which are able to develop a certain awareness, a certain sensitivity towards this, and be aware of their capacity of also shaping the future, as Cynthia was saying. So we have a huge power, at least we pretend to have it, and so we must be aware of what we do. Thank you very much.
Grazie, Anna. Well, it proves that whenever we need inspiration, we just look at whatever you're doing in DESI's network and in Politecnico di Milano, and we'll get a lot of inspiration. Thank you. Thanks for sharing your projects and all this work that you are developing over there. And now we have a little bit of time for some questions. So please.
I have a question. Thank you, Anna, for sharing all your experiences. My question is, what could be your advice for a design community of students and professors who want to start initiatives like this, but they are living in a society where human rights are being crushed and the freedom of speech is not respected? What is your advice?
Oh my God. I was, when I heard the questions that you asked to Cinzia, I was super worried, because I said, I'm not sure I can do it, I can answer. And that's a tough question, very good question. So guys, you probably know that one Italian student a few years ago, Giulio Regeni, that was doing his PhD on human rights, and in particular analyzing some of the communities in Egypt, was killed there. So he went there to develop some research, and was was killed by the police, or let's say in a situation that is still unclear. So it's very whatever we suggest to do, we have to be aware that the consequences of what we do as students, as academics, as thinkers, can go beyond what we can control. Okay, so I never suggest to do anything that could put in at a risk the life of someone. In fact, also the Iranian girl that developed the carpet that you have seen, she is super aware that she cannot go back in her country now and probably in the future until the situation will be the one that we know. So it was her specific decision to do this, and she was absolutely aware of the consequences. Okay, so this is to say that yeah, we cannot stay silent, but we can try to work with the positive part of what we can handle something which is not necessarily let's say an accuse. We can the way in which we operate every day by listening, respecting, and giving room to people which are not probably in the considered in the rights of a certain regime is a way to add to shed light on this situation without accusing a regime for something. We cannot put at any risk the life in a university of our students. We cannot do that. What we can do is give room to all parties and maybe do it in a way that is within the constraints of a given situation. Luckily, as professors, we can teach, and so even if we cannot show sometimes things pointing at them, we can instill the sense of the respect, the sense of the diversity, the sense of the complexity of our societies. So in the history, students' movements have done a lot in the search for human rights. And yes, we have to do it. But at the same time, we have to be aware of the consequences. So I'm really always very, careful, let's say, in suggesting to do things which can put someone at a risk. We are now in a country, Italy, that had a pretty strong right turn, So of course we are in a in a democratic country, fully democratic, but we have a government now that is not anymore that open to rights, and so to differences, to the complexity of the environment, the social environment we live in. There are several issues with migrants. There are several actions against migrants, luckily, we can do this. We can do what you see, but we understand that probably we are going in a direction that is going to be less clever, let's say, in the future. And so that's why we want to keep this initiative very strong and enlarge the scope beyond Ukraine, because we need to talk about rights to prevent, in fact, a case and a situation in which some of these rights might not be anymore recognized. So let's say that we believe very much in prevention in this case, and we want to focus on this. We want to focus on this now.
Thank you.
¿Alguien más tiene alguna pregunta? La podemos pasar al inglés también. ¿No? Sí, sí.
Hello, Ana. Thank you so much for your presentation. My question is starts like this. So when design becomes political and starts talking against the war, we will become more diplomatic, or also we start our own war. For instance, there will always be an opposition in political matters. In this case, there will always be people who support the war, because the liberal side anti-nationalistic or anti-patriotic. How to deal with those attackers? Because they don't always attack in words, they also attack in hacking or social media or weapons, for one to say. You talked about something, a really good example was the digital museum. Sometimes it reminds me a work of journalistics. ¿Cómo se dice periodistas?
Journalists.
They made a digital museum for made a digital museum of journalists in countries like Arabia Saudita, Argentina and Mexico. This is the proposition was made by un servidor encriptado. Server to prevent hackers attacks. How do we deal with this kind of opposition? How do we our proposals more secure?
I'm sorry, but I got your words not very well, so I'm not sure I got all the points, and I'm sorry for this. You mentioned the idea of a journalist museum. Sorry, I'm not sure I got it. Do you?
Okay, give us a second. ¿Me puedes resumir la pregunta y si quieres decir
Así
cómo evitamos que los hackers...
¿Cómo evitar que nuestro trabajo de intervención política reciba ataques o cómo defenderlo, cómo protegerlo para que el impacto un cambio político?
Well, more or less, what I always wanted to ask is that we have sometimes this kind of work that is having this political message or that is wanting to do some activism, but it's attacked, either by hackers or by some people that will block it or show some resistance to it. So how can we get the message through when we encounter this resistance?
When we, sorry?
Encounter the resistance.
you mean the resistance? I can't. Now I hear you well, but I missed the beginning, so I have just a very small understanding. So you mean that there is hackers are what I don't get is the hackers are, in your opinion, those that can make an action, make a counter political action, or sorry, I really missed the context.
Yeah,
so I'm not sure.
More or less, the idea is that whenever we have a proposal, as designers or activists, we want that proposal to get a message through. And sometimes this message is having some resistance by politicians or by these hackers or people that will do some actions against it. So how can we make the message go through?
Oh, got it. Clear. Sometimes, got it. Try. I mean, I don't know. There is no. I mean, messages can take different channels. So I don't know. Depends, of course, very much. The less you have mediators, the better. So in our very simple intention, even using a digital platform such as Instagram, was to avoid mediations. And so when something is there, it's there in the street, in the digital space, in a journal, I don't know, in a newspaper, in a book. I mean, I have no specific answer. It depends. I mean, it depends on the context. If you can manifest something you yourself, you are not mediated. You have the power to make the message pass through. Otherwise, of course, everything can be hacked or can be intentionally transformed, let's say, by the regimes or by the political. But again, I'm not sure I gave an answer that makes sense. I'm sorry. It's very hard to enter into a sophisticated debate when you are in remote. So I'm not sure I got all the points.
No worries, Anna. It was really okay. Thank you for your presentation. We hopefully stay in touch with you. And also we will send you your certificate of participation in this event. So thank you for all the insights that you already gave us today.
We are, of course, if you like, again, with the aim of not being mediated, if you like to have some project that you are doing showcased and considered in our platform, let's say, we are happy to receive it. As you can see, there is no brand, so we decided to keep a very low profile as a Polytechnico to try to keep the platform as open as possible. So if you like, you are welcome without the risk of being, let's say, misunderstood or, in a way used for any propaganda.
Thank you, Anna.
So.
Thank you very much. Yes.
So,
bye.
Bye.
Pues bueno, ahora seguimos con la última presentación. Aquí tenemos algunos participantes de Young Designer Circle, que son los representantes de World Design Organization. En este caso tenemos a Pedro Sáenz Martínez, a Stephanie Padilla, a Giovanna Player. Pedro viene de España, bueno, está por allá por España. Esther está en Filipinas y Giovanna está en Brasil, y acá presencial tenemos a Celina Andino, que es de El Salvador, y su servidora Valeria Valdés, que venimos representando a México. Pues bueno, aquí lo que les queremos contar un poco es sobre la experiencia colaborativa que tuvimos dentro del círculo de jóvenes diseñadores, líderes dentro de esta comunidad. Lo voy a abrir un poco para que puedan ver mis compañeros. Y pues, como breve instrucción, nosotros estuvimos trabajando diferentes temas enfocados a la Agenda 2030, muy en específico a los objetivos para el desarrollo sostenible. Entonces, bueno, nuestros equipos estuvieron encaminados a diferentes objetivos. Pedro y Giovanna estuvieron participando en un proyecto muy interesante del que ahorita nos van a hablar. Y tanto Esther como Celina y yo y otros compañeros que, por ejemplo, vienen de Turquía, de Finlandia y de la India, también estuvieron participando con nosotros. Entonces, bueno, me gustaría comenzar con Pedro. Hola, Pedro, ¿cómo estás?
Hola, Valeria. Muy bien, encantado.
Buenísimo. Pedro, ¿qué nos podrías comentar un poco de la experiencia que tuviste dentro de Young Designer Circles para ti como diseñador?
Pues bueno, en cualquier caso hemos preparado una presentación, Giovanna y yo, en la que íbamos a hablar un poquito como hemos trabajado en el mismo proyecto, entonces quizá comenzamos con eso, con la presentación.
Sí, de acuerdo.
Sí, vale, pues voy a compartirla. Vale. Perfecto. Pues bueno, yo obviamente como soy de España, hablo español. La presentación nos la habíamos preparado en inglés porque la habíamos preparado para hablar de lo mismo Giovanna y yo. Entonces no sé si prefieren que hablen español, hablen inglés.
Bueno, el público de acá está en español, entonces ya las preguntas muy enfocadas, que sean, por ejemplo, para Esteban y Giovanna, las haremos en inglés. Pero tú dale en español.
Vale. Vale, bueno, pues empiezo comentándoles un poco de lo que es el Young Designer Circle, del círculo de jóvenes diseñadores, ¿vale? En la Organización Mundial del Diseño. Para quienes no conozcan la Organización Mundial del Diseño, pues es una ONG que tiene la misión de promover el diseño y el poder que tiene pues, para contribuir a lo que solemos llamar el triple impacto, ¿no? El impacto económico, social y medioambiental. Y entre los varios proyectos que tiene, uno de ellos es el Young Designer Circle, en el que, bueno, lo que hemos hecho es juntarnos una serie de profesionales jóvenes, menores de 30 años hacia abajo, digamos, de diversas disciplinas del diseño, porque sí que aunque la Organización Mundial del Diseño nazca del diseño industrial, al final acoge pues, las distintas disciplinas del diseño. Y bueno, pues somos diseñadores de todas partes del mundo, de distintas edades dentro de este rango, de distintos backgrounds. Y al final los objetivos que tienen el círculo de jóvenes diseñadores son codiseñar entre todo el grupo y con otros actores pues recomendaciones que puedan realmente ser accionables para abordar de alguna forma pues, estos desafíos a los que se enfrenta toda nuestra sociedad, pero en especial nuestra generación, por ser la que va a vivir más tiempo en este planeta en los próximos años, e identificar también, pues, digamos, prácticas emergentes de diseño, ya que la propia práctica del diseño, las propias disciplinas del diseño siguen evolucionando, y cómo impactan estas prácticas en lo que son las políticas y especialmente en los ODS, en los Objetivos de Desarrollo Sostenible. Y por otro lado, como la disciplina del diseño sigue evolucionando, pues contribuir a esta expansión, ¿no? de lo que es el campo del diseño y como dice aquí, pues a esa misión que tiene la Organización Mundial del Diseño de contribuir mediante el diseño a un mundo mejor. Creo que voy a dar el paso a Giovanna, ¿vale? Y seguramente pues ya voy a empezar a hablar. Bueno, me presento brevemente, primero porque ya que estoy aquí sigo hablando en español. Yo, aunque soy más del sur de España, pero estoy, digamos, afincado en Valencia y trabajo como diseñador estratégico precisamente pues tratando de abordar estas cuestiones, sobre todo pues acompañando a organizaciones desde el diseño a mejorar su impacto, a ser más sostenibles, a mejorar sus productos, su comunicación. Y bueno, esto lo hago a través de un estudio de diseño pequeñito que cofundé hace un par de años con otros 2 compañeros. And then I'll handle the conversation to Giovanna, so you can present yourself.
Oh, hello everyone. My name is Giovanna Blay and I'm from Brazil. I live in a place that is called Uberlândia here in Brazil. I work as an interior and also graphic designer at my own creative design business that it's called Blay Studio. I have a master degree in architecture and urbanism, and also I work as a research in sustainability field. So this is our group, the Young Designers Circle. Everybody here on the picture, and then here it's me and Pedro. Stephanie is here too, and also Selena and Valeria. So it's a pleasure to be here talking with you, and I hope I can talk a little about my experience and everything that I learned inside of the WDO. So you can pass the... So inside of the WDO or the YDC, we are developing several projects related to the SDGs. So, but actually go beyond them. We seek to co-create an inspiring vision for a regenerative, sustainable, inclusive, just future. We especially align with SDGs 10, that it's reduce inequalities, and SDG 16, that it's peace, justice, and strong institutions. Both SDGs are also interrelated, as we need to have inequality minimized inside of institutions. And we need accountable, transparent, and inclusive institutions in order to promote equality and tackle the challenges of our time. So we are focusing on this, both SDGs and all the projects that we are trying to achieve both of them. So do you want to comment, Pedro?
Yeah, maybe just to say that one of the first things that we made as a Young Designer Circle, this cohort, because we're the second cohort, but we are in Young Designer Circle for 2 years. So one of the first things was to choose among the vast whole of interests that we had, and of course in every single SDG we had to choose, and then we chose 2 because somehow they were the ones that we could focus more according to the whole group interests.
So just talking about projects we worked inside of the YDC. Last year, we launched the Not There Yet, a global conversation series. This is some posted on Instagram about the program. And the main goal of the NTY was bringing discussions about design and how we can create a better world. Also be able to engage designers and dreamers from all of the world in diverse and honest dialogue about SDGs 10 and 16. This year we had the NTY in Berlin station, and we developed several activities like branding and concept of the NTY, research about methods and strategies to apply on a workshop with K-12 schools, organization of presentations and meetings, and also creation of formal documents for the YDC program. So just talk about our process. Basically, we use the middle board to do all the research. It's a deep research. So as you can see, there's a lot of post-its and everything about our ideas and the general ideas about our group. So we do meetings weekly, and also we have events like each station, like I said, on Berlin station. So it's a good way to do a network with others and exchange informations about the design area. So it's a good experience, of course.
Now talking more specifically about the project we were more involved in, which is not there yet. So we managed to have these talks and conversations during the Berlin Design Week. We would like the project to be wider and to go to other places, but for now we have this opportunity at Berlin Station. And here I, together with Kimia, who's from Berlin, and Muhammad from Canada, we had the opportunity to be here presentially and to do some activities related to the research we wanted to do. In the end, we wanted to do research on how we might design peaceful and thriving communities. So we did research on the streets of Kreuzberg, which is a neighborhood in Berlin. Let's say it's an alternative neighborhood, a very artistic neighborhood, and where there are a lot of community-based projects. And then a police station was set because it was supposed to be a more dangerous place. So though there were some debates about the presence of the police station, so we were talking about that as well. And what did people who lived there at Kreuzberg, what did they think were the factors to design thriving and peaceful communities, and what's the role of the police there as well, if they had a role. And it was very interesting because we had conversations with people who were native from Kreuzberg or Berlin, but also a lot of people who were migrants, and maybe they were there for 3 years, even 7 years, and they had different opinions, and it was really enriching. And also, of course, we assisted to different events on the role of designers for positive impact in the Berlin Design Week. We had the opportunity to reflect a lot about the things that we heard during these conversations and the things that we heard during these events. And we also had a conversation in the DHF radio, which you can see in the second photo, in that kind of track. This is a very interesting project because it's a community-based radio, and they talk about issues that really affect and are of interest for people there who are participating, and it's auto-managed project. So they talk about issues such as queer rights, such as equality and things that affect the community. And we had some takeaways, like we could speak a lot about this, but I'm just going to put some the main takeaways we got. And one of them was the importance of what we called third space, which is a space that's public but non-commercial. We were thinking about the potential of this space. We saw the streets and how people were gathering around in places that were not meant to be, you weren't meant to consume while you are there, so you could relate to each other in a different way, not mediated by consumption. But we also needed to rethink how we design and maybe how we use these spaces, because in the end we realized that even if a lot of people were there, somehow they were still individualized because they were gathering in very small groups, and they were not interacting with each other. So it was still, there was a lot of potential here, but still also there were some things to improve in order to create community, to create a thriving community there. Also, we reflected about the aesthetics and how they relate with the community, because aesthetics, for example, the aesthetics of a place such as Kreuzberg, where the rent is lower than other places, were really, really different from these other places where the rent is higher. So they were also related to the collective identity of the community. So somehow aesthetics have a really important role in the building of a community. And also we reflected about something which is, I think it's a main topic in our conversations all the time, which is how it's the need to apply design to realities which are wider than the products. So we talked about these new roles of design for social innovation, which puts community and not the product at the center. And it was an interesting example, for example, the DHF radio, because they designed this project, but they weren't thinking, okay, we have to design a radio station. They were thinking, we need to design something that keeps community together, and that somehow, of course, there are going to be conflicts between people inside the community, but we need to design something that helps us mitigate these conflicts but without affecting equality. And in the end, of course, you need to design some specific products, such as the radio station itself, the furniture, or whatever, or even the branding of on the website of the THF radio. But they were applying design to something wider. And this might apply as well to the reflections we had about the police station, because somehow when policymakers think of how they might bring peace to a place, then they think of the useful of the common product, which is a police station, like police being the solution to that, instead of bringing the community together and thinking of more enriching ways to bring it peaceful and thriving. And now, when we talk about collaboration around the world, I handle this to Giovanna again.
Okay. So we use some platforms and tools to connect with people from all of the world, because I think it's 21 countries, right, Pedro?
Yeah, it's 21 people. I suppose it's
all of the countries. So, like I said, I live in Brazil, Pedro in Spain, Stephanie is in Philippines, Valeria in Mexico. So we have a lot of people. And then we use some platforms that could help us to communicate. One of them is the Google Drive we use to create presentations, to create formal documents for the YDC. We use the Slack. It's a good platform that we have a lot of channels that we can talk about the meetings, talk about the projects we are working on. To the meetings, we use the Garter. It's a good way to do a meeting because it's like a game. It's very interesting. I will show you the next slide, a picture about our meeting. And then it's a kind of a game, so everyone is on a room. Yes. So this is an example of a meeting. For example, Valeria here, Selena, and then we have this room. This is our Miro board that we have a lot of post-its and all of the ideas that people were having and making on the same board. So is some ways that we work. So come back to on the other slide, Pedro, please. So, like I said, this Slack, we use the Zoom for the meetings too, and also we have a WhatsApp group to communicate. So this is one kind of platforms and tools that we use. So can pass. So the importance of collaborations, one of the challenges that we have is to deal with the different time zones because, for example, what time is there, Pedro?
It's 8 o'clock in the evening right now.
So for me, it's 3 p.m. Maybe in Mexico, it's 11 a.m., right? So one of the things is to relate to the time and the different cultures and way of expressing ourselves. For example, sometimes we have some problems with the language, but the language we use, it's only English. But I know that there's some boundaries related to the language. People that speak Spanish or me, I speak Portuguese, for example. And then, of course, we have some difficulties, but we can understand everybody as soon as possible because it's a way of communication. The collaboration around the globe, diverse experience and approach that it's really enriching. Everyone is aligned with positive impact and sustainability, that it's a common purpose. So this is a picture of our first meeting. So we have the president of the WDO and everybody here. So it's very interesting to have everyone from all of the country sharing different ideas and working on the same projects. I think it's very important, and of course, it's a good collaboration. So you can pass, Pedro. So for me, as a Brazilian member, my experience inside of the YDC was like incredible, and I had a great friendship, the possibility to connect with several people from all of the countries and to understand different perspectives for me was the most important thing. I think participating in the WDO program was a unique contribution to my personal and professional development. And it's a experience that I can't describe, but it's something, the best thing that I had all of my profession as a designer and also as a master in architecture. So you can say, Pedro.
Yeah, I'm going to share my experience in Spanish, as most people who listen to us are Spanish, and I'm Spanish as well. Al final, mi experiencia con el Young Designers es que yo al final me metí a esto porque era una forma de impulsar o de contribuir desde el diseño, entendido de una concepción muy amplia, no solo diseño de producto, no solo una disciplina de diseño específica, contribuir a la sostenibilidad, al impacto positivo y además dentro del marco de los ODS, era algo que ya intentaba hacer, ¿no?, con mi práctica profesional, pero con lo que también me sentía un poco solo, porque además, en general, la gente, o por lo menos en mi contexto, mucha gente, si le hablas de diseño, te va a entender que es algo estético, o que es diseñar un producto, o diseñar algo gráfico. No va a entender lo que es el diseño estratégico, no saben a lo mejor de esto. Y tampoco el business as usual, pues los otros estudios de diseño quizás no es tan común, ahora se están adentrando más, pero quizás no es tan común que se vuelquen en el tema del impacto positivo y de la sostenibilidad. Entonces era una experiencia brutal y el compartirlo ver cómo gente, 21 personas distintas de cada uno de una parte del mundo, todos tenemos muchas diferencias en tanto que culturalmente, nuestro background o a qué nos dedicamos, pero todos estamos muy alineados en este propósito, es súper enriquecedor y la verdad que con eso, pues, bueno, como decía también ahí, que las conexiones que se generan creo que no han sido solo como transaccionales para hacer un proyecto o tal, sino que al final creas amistades también, ¿no? Y esto la verdad es que es muy bonito. So, thanks a lot.
Gracias, Pedro y Giovanna. Bueno, estuvieron participando en este proyecto que llevaron a cabo sobre justo cómo hablar de este tipo de series en diferentes estaciones alrededor del mundo. Pero también tenemos aquí a Stephanie Padilla y a Selina Andino, que estuvieron trabajando conmigo en el proyecto de Design for Peace. Entonces, bueno, no sé si Stephanie, ¿quieres ir pasando algunas imágenes mientras vamos hablando del proyecto? Stephanie, could you please share some of the pictures that you prepared?
And present yourself.
Yes.
Hi everyone, good morning from the Philippines. It's now 2 a.m. in my country. Yeah, all right, so I'll just be sharing the similar platforms that Giovanna presented earlier. So we have the first one is the Gather. So just giving you this animation video of what's happening in Gather. So we have this this space where we can all collaborate, and it has different rooms that we can talk to. So this is our executive room where we all gather together and talk about our projects. And as you can see, we have different areas to discuss. And each project of the YDC program, this is a bigger screenshot during the discussion. This is us discussing several projects at the same time. And again, us with the WDO members, and also we use the Miro. So this is another screen recording of how we use the Miro. As you can see, it's all chaotic. There's a lot of things happening at the same time, but Miro, as Giovanna said, it's a good platform to collaborate and exchange ideas at the same time. So here are some process that we did in designing for peace. So we started discussing how peace is defined in Asia, in Africa, in different continents, and then we tackled several issues that our country is experiencing, and most specifically, we were able to develop this sphere where we can relate ourselves to the different definition of peace. And also, we use Zoom as usual. It's I think the most common platform. Aside from that, we also use Slack. You can see here that we all have different channels because YDC is, I think, implementing 4 projects at the same time. So we have these channels to talk about each project and be specific on our objectives. So there you go. And the Google Drive, where we upload all the projects and the documents that we are working on. So this is it for the Peace Project, that Selena will be presenting the Peace Project itself. Maybe just to end my sharing, I just want to share that the Young Designer Circle allows us to work on our skill sets while collaborating with each other in creating projects that address real-world challenges. A project where I am heavily involved with is the Design for Peace. It considers the scalable impact of peace through personal, social relationships, and community spheres. Design for Peace defined how design can help us in creating meaningful experiences that will bring peace to an individual and bring awareness to the community. Overall, the YDC Experience Challenge and develop my design leadership skills. I learned to use the platform in making conversations that matter, how to keep up with the changing world, and how to evolve with it.
Thank you very
There
much.
you go.
Y bueno, dentro también de esta experiencia, nosotros estuvimos trabajando justo desde lo que nos lleva a atravesar dentro de estos contextos. Creo que no es casualidad que personas, por ejemplo, de Turquía, de la India, de Colombia, de El Salvador, de Filipinas, estuvieran particularmente interesados en los temas de conflicto que hay en sus países hoy por hoy y de qué manera podemos empezar a crear espacios, comunidades, inclusive productos y servicios que favorezcan espacios más pacíficos. Entonces, alrededor de todo este tiempo, estuvimos haciendo mucho trabajo de investigación sobre qué hay que entender sobre la paz. También estuvimos haciendo diferentes reflexiones acerca de, bueno, uno qué entiende la paz, de dónde la entiende y qué entienden también los que están alrededor de nosotros en cuanto a ese tema, ¿no?
Sí, de verdad que ha sido todo un reto el trabajar con estos chicos, trabajar de forma remota, ¿no? Era primera vez que nos veíamos. Yo he estado como en el rol de coach, dirigiendo, pero también aprendiendo con estos chicos. Y una de las cosas que me motivó, ¿no?, a formar parte de este gran proyecto es entender un poquito más, ¿no?, sobre cómo, a pesar que estamos en diferentes contextos, culturas, hay denominadores comunes, ¿no?, que tenemos y que nos unen. En este caso, el Proyecto para la Paz, tal como lo dice Valeria, para mí personalmente significa muchísimo, porque actualmente estamos en El Salvador viviendo una situación política muy fuerte, en donde casi que cualquier cosa que tú digas en contra, pues te cae, ¿no? Entonces, esta fue una oportunidad para mí para conocer otra manera, pues también de entender y comenzar estas conversaciones en torno de la paz, aprender también de todos estos diseñadores fabulosos.
Algo que me gustaría preguntarles, lo voy a decir en español y en inglés, un poco para ir cerrando esta participación, es ¿qué de esta experiencia les gustaría o creen necesaria que otros diseñadores también la tuvieran? So I'm going to translate the question. What of this experience in YDC do you think is something that is crucial for other designers to experience? Adelante, quien quiera responder en español o en inglés.
Giovanna.
No habla de español.
Giovanna, don't worry.
Can I say Portuguese? Or
Yes.
don't you understand?
Yes, why not? Sí. Yes.
No, I will say in English, it's better. So I think the most important thing inside of the YDC, it's the network, because it's like you start to think outside of the box, not think just because what is designed for me is different for you. So we started to think like using the other's perspective to create other views of design. So I think to have the experience to share my idea with others, it's a great learning, and I think it's the most experience that I had. Something like that, you asked?
Yes. Exactly. Thank you, Giovanna.
No problem. If you want to ask something more.
Stephanie or Pedro.
All right, I'll proceed. Yeah, so today I listened to the presentation of Cynthia and Anna earlier, and Cynthia said about the interesting space or the interesting relationship between peace and design. There is a common process that is communication, iteration, and understanding the context. Well, Anna said that it is very important to have these listening skills, respecting each other and giving room to people, because we cannot, as she said, we cannot risk anything that is negative to impact what we do. So I guess what we should be doing is to really gather this information from the people, continue talking to them. I think it's also the point of the Not There Yet series. It's all about learning how people define peace, for example, and how peace impact their lives, and how peace was able to influence their decision making in life. And maybe from there, from gathering those information, that's the time that we will be able to establish this structure that we can use as a design solution and address the real world needs of our stakeholders. Thank you, Pedro.
Yo, por añadir algo a lo que han dicho las compañeras, que la verdad que me representa también, en mi opinión, totalmente, creo que es muy interesante, por decirlo de alguna forma, la labor asociativa o la labor para una ONG o para una entidad como puede ser esta, como puede ser la World Design Organization, que es algo, digamos, adicional al trabajo que uno hace remunerado, y hay veces que el trabajo remunerado, por ser remunerado también, el impacto que tienes está un poco limitado por quién paga, así dicho rápido. Y me parece que esa labor de hacer otros proyectos que quizás no están pagados, pero de contribuir de alguna forma a la comunidad, puede ser aquí. Yo recientemente, y también ha sido algo que me ha inspirado mucho esta experiencia con el Young Designers a hacer, pues me he involucrado más en la Asociación de Diseñadores del territorio donde estoy, de Valencia, de la Comunidad Valenciana. Y bueno, no dejan de ser cosas que son para el bien de las profesionales del diseño. Entonces, creo que son para el bien, por un lado, de nosotras mismas y de la profesión, y por otro lado, mejoran el impacto de la profesión. De alguna forma nos hacen ser más conscientes del impacto que tenemos como diseñadoras, y creo que es como un impacto positivo en dos direcciones. Entonces, creo que esa labor asociativa, experimentarla, pues es bastante interesante para cualquier diseñador.
Gracias, Pedro. Selina.
Yo creo que primero quitarse el miedo, ¿no? De plantear un proyecto que uno dice, bueno, eso quizás solo yo lo estoy pensando, pero hay otras personas que a lo mejor comparten la misma idea. Proponerlo, probarlo, y a pesar de que no todos estén de acuerdo, seguir adelante. Y eso significa mucha flexibilidad, resiliencia también, y ganas de verdad de hacer las cosas sin importar si te bloquean o que te dicen que no. Yo creo que eso es importante para todo diseñador, el saber lidiar, ¿no?, con estos procesos. Creo que esta plataforma de una u otra forma ha permitido eso con este proyecto de Design for Peace que vamos a probarlo en los próximos días.
Exacto. Pues justo, mucho de lo que comentan mis compañeros y compañeras es parte de lo que yo también pienso, y agregaría que esta diversidad que compone este grupo también es una gran riqueza de aprender a colaborar con otras personas y también verlo desde diferentes puntos de vista. Entonces, pues nada, con eso cierro y agradezco a mis compañeros y compañeras. Thank you very much for being here, guys. I really appreciate it. You know that I am like a fan from your projects and your work. You are really inspiring, and so we just close for today this session. Muchas gracias a quienes estuvieron viendo la transmisión y estuvieron dentro del Laboratorio de Innovación Metropolitana y nos vemos el miércoles. Hasta luego. See you guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
See you next Saturday.
Thank you. Bye.
Gracias, CyADtv, y cerramos la transmisión.
Muchas gracias, CyADtv, por la transmisión y cerramos transmisión entonces.
Recording